Hi, I'm Stephen Bull, the host of Waterways TV and Powerboat Television, and this behind me is the global headquarters for Mustang Survival. You've probably heard of them. They are a safety solution for everything from the military to your kids on your boat. And so how does it all happen? What do they do? Well, let's find out.
Hi, my name is Kenny Ballard. I have the honor of being the president of Mustang Survival. Before we jump into the factory tour, I just want to introduce you to Henry, who is one of our factory professionals. He's going to give you a guided, detailed look at how we do things behind the scenes at Mustang Survival.
My name is Henry, and I am an engineer on the manufacturing team. I've been with Mustang for just over 5 years now. Been working with the production floor really closely in these past 5 years. Yeah. So we'll get a tour of how, like what Kenny said, how a work order, a product would go through the entire production floor, starting with fabric. So in Mustang, for our production floor here in Burnaby, we have 3 main departments. We have a pre-module, which is the prep line. They prepare all the components. And then we have the assembly module, which puts all these components together. And then we have a quality control department where they would do all the inspection, the packaging, the testing. And after that, the product goes back into warehouse for fulfillment, or it goes on the shelf. Yeah, so we'll go through that. So the first pre-module here is pre-module 1. They deal with all the fabrics. So whatever work order they receive that comes like this, all the bill of material is listed in here, and they will grab the material that they need based on the product in the work order, and they will use that information to spread the material. So most of the fabric, they would spread in lengths of about 2 to 3 yards per ply, and we stack in multiple plies depending on the quantity. On the very top here is the marker. So the marker tells you what are the pieces that goes onto this product that's being cut in this fabric. So this material is just rectangles that we're cutting right now on, this is bladder material. And you can see they spread, this is probably 10 plies. So there's 10 plies stacked in here that is in this spread. And so all of these are finished spreads that are waiting to go into the cutter to cut. So in here, this is a Gerber cutter. It's a multiply cutter. So at the bottom, there's bristles and there's a conveyor at the bottom. We put the material in, and then the plastic seals the top, and it creates that vacuum when we pull it. So it holds everything together. If you can see on the other side, just be careful up here. So if you want to come over here, so that disc thing is the knife. So the knife goes up and down, and it moves with the pattern. So you can see that this spread, it has a bunch of these like triangular shaped patterns. That's what it's cutting right now. Once the material comes out, there would be a person picking all the pieces to grab all the pieces, and they will put it in a temporary bin here. These are all work orders that are waiting to be sorted. So they have been picked, and then the bundling person will sort the entire box of pieces that are cut into a bin ready to go down the line. So we have 2 Gerber cutters in-house. We also have capacity to cut foam for all of our foam products, our foam jackets and our foam suits. So that's pre-module 1. Pre-module 1 does all the fabric cutting. So on this side, it's all the miscellaneous operations. So pre-module 2, they do things ranging from screen printing all the way down to label printing, to strip cutting, to grommets, to eyelets, to snaps. So over here we see screen printing. So a lot of our bladders, specifically inflatables, would have artworks that are printed on them. So these are plasticel ink that we would print our Mustang logo or any artwork that needs to go on the bladder. It will be screened down there, and then it will pass through the heat tunnel for it to cure. And then once it's cured, they'll get put into a stack again, like this. Yeah. So this is one side of the inflatable, and that's the other side. That's with the Mustang logo. So later, you'll see how it's put together. We also have capacity to make screens in-house that are roughly this big. If anything bigger, we have a vendor that we work with to make screens outside. Yeah, but this allows us to make prints for customers too, if they want a customized screen print on products. Yeah. Over here is the strip cutting. We have a few cold cutters and a hot cutter. So these machines will cut any narrow rolls. So Velcros, webbings, lace, reflective, all that kind of narrow rolled up goods will be cut over here. And then down here is where we have our label printing and our embroidery. So we print 95% of our labels in-house, and we have embroidery. So some of our products have embroidery. This is our liner piece, our fleece liners. Get our embroidered logo on it. These are programmable sewing machines. They can be programmed to sew a fixed pattern, a circle stitch or a box stitch, 4x2 box stitch or a box X stitch, or like really any pattern that we program. So how it works is, you can see here, there's a top clamp that clamps down, that clamps onto the silicone logo at the bottom with the material. So once the material is fixed in place, the machine will start and it will just sew a circle around it. And that will do the circle stitch. So you can see at the back it's a circle. So that's how we attach a lot of these patches or Velcros onto a panel. So assembly modules down there, they don't need to worry about these little component sewing. They just need to worry about sewing the big pieces together. So there's a bunch of these machines in this area. This is one, this is one. There's a whole bunch down there. So setting the material in first, and then putting in the patch. Once that's fixed, they will commence with the sewing. So the reason why we do this is because it helps with streamlining the line down in the assembly module, but also this takes less sewing skills to train. So you just need to know how to set the material in the machine, and the machine will do the sewing itself. This is easier to train people to work on, so that whenever we need people, we can pull people in to use all these machines. This is the fastener station. So all the grommets, the snaps, the eyelets get attached in this area. So our fabrics will need to have holes created. And this, I believe, will be a grommet operation. So that's pre-module 2. So pre-module 2 really does all the miscellaneous operations, ranging from screen printing all the way down to snaps. This is pre-module 3. So pre-module 3 does all the heat pressing and a little bit of sewing and taping. So specifically for our dry suits, as you can see here, these are a bunch of socks that will go on our dry suits eventually. So our dry suits are 100% leak tight. So for these socks, they would need to be sewn first and then taped, because with the sewing, it creates the pinholes that would cause leaking. Not pinholes, there would be the sewing stitches that would cause leaking. So we would put a tape over it, and that would seal up the gaps, and then this whole thing will become waterproof. This lady over here, she's doing the sewing of the sock, and then later the sock will be taped on the taping machine. And then once the socks are taped, they will need to be leak tested. So these are all socks that have been taped with the seam tape. So what our staff will do is they will clamp it on this jig over here. So you would clamp the one opening of the sock. We put air in, and we inflate it to about 1 psi. The point of pouring soapy water over it is so that if there's air coming out of the sock, there will be bubbles coming out, and they will know that there's a leak over there. So they will identify the leak and they will either heat press it, rework it, or if it's not repairable, then it will be scrapped. But most of the time they are repairable, and most of the time they are first pass yield. They would not leak on the first test. Yes. So all these over here are just drying right now. We're a big fan up there to dry all these boxes so they can be stored away dry. So down here is all the heat pressing. So all of these machines you see here are heat presses. So we do heat presses for our regular products. We have this lady over here. She's heat pressing our Mustang wording logo onto, this is for an HIT, one of our HITs. And we would heat press logos, labels. We also make, for our dry suit wrist seals, they're also heat pressed using a mug press. So for our inflatables, we have cylinders in the inflatable to inflate the inflatable. Cylinders also assembled in-house. So we would receive the cylinder canister, and then we would attach the cap to it. So depending on all the caps, all the cylinders will share the same cap, but depending on the buoyancy and the volume of the product, they would have different cylinder weights to it. The last pre-module is pre-module 5. This is where we build all our inflatables. The flow is, the big orange machine is the die press. They would cut the material. The reason why we need to die press them instead of Gerber cut them is because all of these small shapes, like these circles and an even smaller circle for the oral tube, we need to make sure that they are edge stable and there's no tear points in the cut. So we want to die cut them so that it's a perfect circle when it's cut. Once that's done, it goes to those two machines over there. So they would have to, so that lady over there, she is welding the oral tube right now. So they would put the oral tube through and put the jig on, and they will weld it. So the idea of RF welding is that there's electricity going through the machine and going onto the material, and it would cause the particles on the polyurethane to move rapidly and basically bond together. So once that's welded, it becomes one piece like this. Yeah. So it's the same idea for the other side, the sealing ring is the same idea on this machine. So these are lower power machines that do these kind of component welding. Once that's done, once the panels are prepared, this big machine over here does the perimeter welding. So this is the big welding die. This is the shape of the weld. So you can see it's kind of like a heart shape. And they will put the two panels together as he will be doing. So the first layer of the oral tube goes in. The alignment pins help do the alignment and kind of stretch out the material so there's no wrinkles. So once it comes out, they would check for the weld line to make sure that the weld line is free of wrinkles and debris. And that weld line creates that chamber for all of our inflatables. Right now, the situation is a bit different. We have a huge government contract that we need to finish up by the end of year. So focusing on government contracts, so these are the G suits for the military. So we build a variety of different categories. Our product lines are military, recreational, and we also have public safety. So Burnaby here, we focus a lot on military and public safety with a little bit of recreational, dry suits and inflatables. we combine two modules together. So module 2 and module 4 are currently combined. They're working on one single product right now. And then module 5 is just working on a single product also. So 2 main machines in the assembly modules, the sewing machines down there, and then the taping machine. So taping machine you see here, very similar to the one we saw in pre-module 3 when we were doing the socks. The 2 rollers, there's one on the top, one at the bottom. The tape feeds through the top roller, and the nozzle on the left will come in, and it will blow hot air onto that tape. And as the tape is melted, the roller will bring the tape down, and it will laminate onto the seam. And that's how you create a waterproof seam after you sew. At the back of all of these assembly modules, they have a bunch of samples at the back of the wall, so you can see here. So these samples are products that we make or have made here in Burnaby. These are for them to reference because we switch products so frequently. It's for them to reference whenever they switch to a new style. So you see here on this entire rack, these are all inflatables, but there's probably like 20 plus of them. So whenever they switch, they will need a refresher, and this is ready for them to grab and to just take a quick look to see what difference this is compared to the products that they were building before. So all of that towards the left are dry suits. The middle here are some foam vests. And all of this going down are inflatables. And then you have more dry suits at the end there. This is our QC module. We do all of our inspection, testing, and packaging here. For our dry suits, we are one of the few companies, if not the only company, that does 100% leak testing on every single unit of our dry suits, meaning all the dry suits will go through the same leak testing as you saw for the socks, inflating it, checking if there's any air bubbles, and making sure that it's 100% leak tight. So this is a finished dry suit, inverted. I'm nervous. I'm nervous. So the zipper is leak tight, so the zipper will be zipped.
Got it, brother? Okay.
Oh gosh, I haven't done this in so long.
It'll go on your review.
And then this is that pancake jig that we use to go into the neck. So the neck seal is an adjustable neck seal. So there's 3 openings on this that we need to clamp. So first is the neck. So
He's giving you lots of B-roll. Yeah, that's great.
so nervous.
The idea behind this is to make this entirely airtight.
Exactly. So
Imagine a big balloon.
yes.
Literally blowing it up like a big old balloon. Just like the socks that you saw earlier.
Yes. So the neck will be plugged with the 2 openings. So the arms, so the wrist gets clamped on both sides. So this is the neoprene wrist seal. This part is not sewn to the fabric. This is heat press, that mug press that I was talking about. So there's a layer of BMIS adhesive in the middle, and so it would melt that BMIS, and it would basically be that middle layer adhesive between the neoprene and the fabric. Okay, so now that it's inflated, just making sure that there's no leaks. So now that's inflated, we do the same thing. So instead of a little jug to pour water, we have custom-made garden hoses to spray soapy water over the entire suit.
Steve, the areas that are most anytime you have a major intersection, that's an opportunity for the place to leak.
Yeah, so once the whole suit is soaked, the leak tester will look for, like what Kenny said, those major thick cross seams. So especially the crotch, there's that T-seam, and any cross seams is where they will be looking at, because that's where the material is the thickest, because you have a lot of layers of fabric going through. So those would be the areas they will be checking. There's also these squeeze bottles that they would fill with soapy water to really check a certain area to make sure that there's no leaks on them. So once the front is done, they will flip it and check the other side of the suit. And once that suit is checked, it goes into the closet back there for drying. So the same idea, like the socks that you saw, it dries with a big fan in here.
That's the test.
I still got it. Each dry suit takes about 15 to 20 minutes to leak test, both front and back. It does take a lot of time, but we want to make sure that all of our dry suits, every single unit, is leak tight before it leaves our wash, before it leaves our door. What's the importance of air testing instead of water testing? So we test with air. Two main reasons. First thing is, if it doesn't leak air, then it will not leak water, because air molecules are smaller than water molecules. So if there is no air leak, then we know there will be no water leak. And the second thing is, we do not have the people or the time to water test every single suit, and that will take too long. But we do have the capacity, which you will see later. So another piece that we leak test, that we test 100% are our inflatables. So I don't have any right now, but so these are inflatables when they're fully completed. So this is an HIT. This bladder is sewn on at different points on the shell, and it can get packaged into a more compact unit. But once all the sewing is done on an inflatable, they go through something called air retention. So the process is, we would inflate the unit to a certain PSI, and we would hold the air there for 12 to 16 hours. And then after that time, we would check the air pressure on each unit again, to make sure that there's no air loss, or the air loss is acceptable depending on the ambient temperature and the humidity. Yeah.
Those ones would be like this?
Yeah, so those are, I'm not sure what those are, like what kind of tests they're going through, but this idea is the same. So we would inflate the unit, and we'll leave it for a certain amount of time to make sure that it's retaining the air. So usually our inflatable work orders, they come in 60 units per work order. So it will take up a lot of space if a bunch of these are inflated and just kind of lying on the floor. So once they inflate them, what they will do is they will put them in all these nets that you see at the top, and they will go up, so it doesn't take floor space. So they will all be inflated, put in the nets, brought to the air.
And then every inflatable gets
Every single inflatable that we will ever make in this facility, in all facilities in Mustang, will go through the same exact testing of air retention. The reason why is because it doesn't matter how much sewing there is on the bladder. If there's minimal sewing, if there's a lot of sewing, that's a risk for pinholes to go onto the bladder. So we want to make sure that at the very last step, once all the sewing is done, we do one last air retention test to make sure that there's nothing wrong with the bladder. So this is our pool room. This is where we do our pool testing for any of our development products or prototypes. Come on in. So we have a pool here, and we can do a bunch of pool testings for dry suits, for leak testing, or inflatables for any buoyancy tests. And we throw people in here. But we also save lives for a living, so.
So when would you use this for, like, why this when you already got all the air testing stuff?
So this is mainly for development. Our product engineers could tell you more, but usually when we're testing inflatables, we would test how the product will actually wear and how it actually behave on a person in the pool. So to change any patterns or if there's buoyancy that needs to be changed or any shell material that needs to be changed or any discomfort, that will also be tested and that will come out during that time. For dry suits, the same thing. If there's any leak points, if there's any weird wears that goes on to the test subject, then that also can be reviewed in those testings. So once all the product comes into the QC module and it's inspected, tested, and packaged, it goes back into the warehouse and it gets either fulfilled or it goes back onto the shelf. For more information, you can visit us at mustangsurvival.ca.